to Storytellers, an inside look at what makes Corcentric Corcentric. In this new video series, we'll be exploring the relationships, services, events, and history of Corcentric in a way that gives you a true understanding of who we are, what we do, and how we help companies around the world. So today we're breaking down the story of Daimler Trucks North America, a big name in commercial vehicle manufacturing. And to do that, we've brought in our president and CEO, Matt Clark. Matt, can you talk a little bit about our relationship with Daimler and how we started doing business with them?
Yeah, so really it dates back to the very beginning days of Corcentric. So when we created our fleet GPO, one of the first things we needed to do once we had that concept was to go out to suppliers in the truck transportation space and introduce to them a new model in how they can do business with a certain subset of their customers. So we went out into the marketplace with our unique concept, which involved basically going to these suppliers, typically major manufacturers, and saying, look, we know the pain points and the challenges that you have in dealing with, especially medium-sized customers, in the sense that it involves a lot of friction in terms of how they were getting paid by these customers, how they were managing the PO and invoice process with these customers, and really coming to them with a unique value proposition to say, look, for this constituent of customers, we've built a model that combines our technology capabilities as well as our payment capabilities to be able to remove all that friction on your behalf. And so we went to the Daimlers of the world and said, for anybody that would purchase through this group purchasing organization that we created, we would pay you on time, every time, without deduction. We would swivel chair and take care of all the invoicing and the collections on the customer side of the equation, and deliver a real value proposition that was very meaningful in the sense that Daimler would get for this subset of their customer base, guaranteed outcomes like guaranteed DSO, again, cash flow certainty, elimination of credit risk, and then all the efficiencies that came from the managed services that we were providing as well, which involve dealing with dispute management, again, the credit and collections side of the equation, and all that is required to make it as seamless, digital, and automated as possible by inserting us into the middle. So that was really Daimler's first exposure to this business model for a very specific subset of their customers, which would be the folks that we were signing up for our Corcentric Fleet GPO. So that was a relationship that dated back to the early 2000s. And so Daimler got a taste of what we would call now our order to cash or managed AR solution, from the very beginning, early days of Corcentric. And then over time, them experiencing, how well that business model worked and, what that did for them from an outcomes perspective, I think really opened their eyes to something bigger, which was saying, okay, this works really well for this particular scenario, but we have those same challenges and those same friction points with our larger, more strategic customers. And that's what really got the dialogue going about taking something that they had gotten a taste of through our fleet GPO and applying it more broadly at Daimler to solve for some of the challenges and the pain points and the friction that existed outside of what we were doing with them in that fleet GPO.
So Matt, you touched a little bit on this, but Daimler was looking to us to solve a specific problem. Can you explain what their pain point was and how we addressed it?
Yeah, so the pain point that we were trying to solve for really involved, again, all that friction that exists when they're trying to execute B2B transactions. So interfacing with their top 1,000 accounts. And really what was happening was Daimler themselves was responsible for managing really two sides of the equation here. Daimler has a dealer distributor network of about 600 dealers and distributors that are selling parts and service to those top 1,000 accounts. Daimler was sitting in the middle of that ecosystem. They were responsible for reimbursing and executing payments to the dealers and the distributors, which would be the sell side entities in this instance. And then they were also responsible for then turning around and doing everything that needed to be done on the customer side of the equation to make sure that those customers were getting invoiced efficiently and effectively, and that they were able to collect and process payments from the customer side of the equation. And really, what that led to was a realization by Daimler that being in the middle of this and having to manage this at scale was not a core competency for them. They're a manufacturer. Their core competency is making great trucks. It's providing great parts and service capabilities to their customer base, but managing all of the kind of B2B commerce elements of those relationships wasn't a core competency from them, and it was impacting their business and their ability to grow their business. An example of that would be not being as tightly integrated on the dealer distributor side with those point of sale systems and with those ERP systems that their dealer distributor network was using, which was leading to a less than optimal situation on that side of the equation. And then when you flip over to the customer side of the equation, they had customers, large customers, like a UPS, like a Waste Management, like a FedEx, like a Penske, like a Ryder, that all had different mousetraps for how they wanted to transact with Daimler for this program. And where the real pain was coming in was on that side of the equation was the fact that they were being hit pretty much on a regular basis with several one-off situations that they had to accommodate. Penske had a way in which they wanted to transact. Ryder had a way in which they wanted to transact, and that involves a big integration lift, a real big lift in terms of how payments are being processed from a payment timing and a payment modality perspective. And we're really not able to keep up with the demand on that front. And what that was leading to for them was a lot of effort, a lot of manpower, and a lot of time, energy, and resources being expended to deliver solutions on both sides of the equation that really didn't meet the bill when it came to efficiently transacting purchase orders and invoices, and efficiently managing the landscape of payments out to their dealer distributors, and then the payments in from their customers. So they had this very, very complex, broad set of challenges that they were trying to address. And the only way that they, could figure out how to address it was to keep throwing more bodies at it and continuing to, not exceed expectations, but either just barely meet expectations or coming short of expectations on both sides of the equation. And so they had an awakening in really the 2012 timeframe where they said, look, this isn't working. We're not making progress. In fact, we're kind of losing ground. And ultimately, it was impacting their ability to grow this program and grow the business, because they had frustration on the customer side where customers were saying, look, if you can't make this a more seamless process that kind of meets the needs that we have, it's going to make sense for us to maybe not put as much volume through you, Daimler, and maybe take some or all of that volume and move it to a competitor. And so that's what really rose it to the top of their priority list and made them realize we need to go out in the marketplace and find a solution provider or solution providers that can solve for all the pain points and the friction that we're experiencing on both the dealer distributor side as well as the customer side of the equation.
So it's clear we have a strong relationship with Daimler. I think you've mentioned it's gone on 9 years now. What are some of the results they've seen over this time?
Yeah, so great question. It's one thing to get engaged with an opportunity like this with Daimler and hope that you're going to be able to achieve the outcomes that you set out to achieve. And really what's happened over the period of time that we've implemented this solution with Daimler has probably exceeded all of our expectations, meaning Corcentric as well as Daimler themselves, but also their dealer distributor network and their customer community. So I'd say on all fronts, it's been a huge win. I think some of the key things that I always like to highlight in terms of the outcomes and the results that we've delivered. First and foremost, I talked about how those challenges and that friction and those pain points were impacting their ability to grow this program. When we first got involved with Daimler and they implemented our solution and put us in the middle of this ecosystem, it was about a $600 million program. That's the annual sales they were doing through this program. As we wrap up 2021 here, they'll do north of 1.2 billion in sales through this program. So we've doubled the sales for this program, and it's something that Daimler gives us a lot of credit for some of the things that I touched on earlier. The fact that we made it a better experience for the customers, a more seamless experience for the customers. We made it a better experience for the dealer distributor network, and all of that has led to more volume being put through the system and the program from those existing relationships. But it's also allowed them to win new business. So they've been able to go after new business, put forth the fact that we are in the industry, kind of the best billing solution, and by proxy now Daimler has the best billing solution in the industry. And it's a real differentiator when customers are trying to make decisions on who to do business with. The pricing of goods and services is obviously a big driver of why customers make a decision to do business with certain suppliers. But what has become even a bigger evaluation criteria for these customers is how seamless is the transaction processing and payment processing going to be, and how much can exceptions be minimized, and how automated and digital can this be so that I don't have to have folks, human capital dedicated to this and spending more time, which really increases the total cost of ownership to doing business with a Daimler. So all those things that we brought to the table helped to create a situation where growth has really been able to be accelerated. I'd say a couple other things that I would point out. I talked about the importance of being able to integrate with the dealer and distributor ERP and point of sale systems, the importance of being able to integrate with the ERP systems that the customers are using, or the third-party networks that their customers are using, like an SAP Ariba, like a Coupa. The ability to do that at scale was a huge part of that success equation. Over 1,600 unique connections to the systems that are being used by their dealer distributors and their customers. And that ultimately has led to things like an 86% reduction in disputes. That 86% reduction in disputes, really is all because we are, again, more tightly integrated, addressing potential issues with a transaction further upstream, so that when an invoice gets to a customer, it's clean. It meets all the criteria, the validation criteria that the customer has. It's priced right. It's got all the characteristics in terms of the data set required to successfully process those invoices. All of that's taken care of, so that the back end of that transaction life cycle is super clean, and ultimately leads to a huge reduction in disputes. And if you think about, for example, what happens when there is a dispute on a transaction, that involves somebody from the customer side having to deal with that dispute. It involves somebody from the dealer distributor side that has to deal with that dispute, and the entire life cycle of getting that dispute resolved. And before we were involved resources from the Daimler side to kind of mitigate all that as well. So we've been able to drastically reduce the number of exceptions and disputes, which creates material efficiencies for all parties involved. And then obviously by Daimler, really outsourcing these capabilities to us has completely removed themselves from the equation. So Daimler's sitting there saying, I have a lot less resources dedicated to managing this program and everything that goes along with it. My dealers and distributors are happy because it's a seamless and clean process for them. My customers are happy because it's a seamless and efficient process for them. And so you get that true kind of win-win-win, which is what we're looking for in these types of situations.
Obviously, some major accomplishments thus far, but lastly, what's the future looking like for Daimler, and how will Corcentric play a part?
Yeah, so given the success of the relationship and the great outcomes that have been achieved up to this point, Certainly we're locked arms with Daimler on how we can even take it further in the future. So we're not going to be complacent and sit here and say we've got this all nailed and we should just kind of continue doing what we're doing. We're always trying to push the envelope further. So we have a great relationship with Daimler where we are collaborating with them on a regular basis about how we can push even further to being on that leading edge of B2B commerce, especially in this transportation space. So I think when you think about everything that exists with this relationship, the capabilities that we bring to the table, the relationships and the network that Daimler brings to the table, you combine those things together, and there's so much even more opportunity to do more going forward. And if you start to look at some of the emerging technologies, you take blockchain, for example, there's going to be opportunities for us to introduce, leading edge capabilities in partnership with Daimler that are going to continue to transform the future of B2B commerce in the transportation space, and ultimately lead to what is most important, which is a differentiated position in the marketplace, one that will allow them to continue to grow their market share, win more and more business, retain the business they have, and really be a leader again in an area that wouldn't be considered core competency for Daimler. So the partnership is in a great place. We are collaborating with them on really exciting things that we're going to be able to roll out in the future and create even better outcomes than we've already delivered through us being in the middle of this ecosystem for them and creating happy constituents on all fronts.